Yes, you are. Thank you for that intro, Jar Jar. All of our regular listeners know our Jar Jar Binks intro is courtesy of the wonderful actor Stephen Alaric, who joins us periodically on occasion and who just happened to have been the first starring Simba on Broadway in The Lion King. Welcome to November already of 2017. This is Behind the Lens, and I am Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens. I've been a critic for over 30 years. I've been doing production longer than that. I've been a journalist going back to 1975. But it is my pleasure to bring you Behind the Lens. We're getting ready to actually kick off our 4th year in January. So, and every week we just get, it just gets better and better with bigger guests, better guests, more interesting guests as we celebrate indies and tent poles alike. And right now we are in the heart of award season. So every week I'm trying to bring you some exclusive interviews that I've been pre-recording with potential award contenders. Today you're going to hear from Dan Lemon, the visual effects supervisor for War for Planet of the Apes. Dan worked on Dawn of Planet of the Apes, Rise of Planet of the Apes, and now War for Planet of the Apes. Has seen technology go from beginning to end. You will also be able to find this interview after you hear it in its entirety today. You'll also be able to find it on BehindTheLensOnline.net, along with a number of other interviews, some new ones that you might want to check out. A one-on-one with the ground down, the legend herself, Cicely Tyson. Rob Reiner talks about his new film, LBJ, which is out right now. Cicely is talking about Last Flag Flying, a very wonderful film this week before Veterans Day on the 11th of November. But every Monday, you can find me and all these great guests right here on Adrenaline Radio, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And in between, 24/7 in print and online in the U.S. and abroad. But let's get started because we are packed. We've got Dan's, the pre-recorded interview with Dan for the first half of the show. And then at the midway point, I am thrilled. A wonderful actress who has been with us before, Penelope Lagos. She was last with us talking with her director, Joe Pepitone, talking about The Jersey Devil. And Joe, I am still waiting for my sequel. But a woman of many talents, Penelope has written a children's book called I Miss My Best Friend. And for those of us that have already seen War for Planet of the Apes, and we know what happens at the end with our beloved ape Caesar, beautifully played by Andy Serkis, I think that we will all need to delve into Penelope's book about missing your best friend, the loss of a pet. But until then, sit back, relax, and listen to my exclusive interview with Dan Lemon of WETA Digital. He was in New Zealand. I was here in LA talking War for Planet of the Apes. I can't believe what has transpired just technologically over the course of the past 3 films, Dawn, Rise, and War, to such a degree that we can see the visual differences in the motion capture, in the animation of the films through the progression.
Something that we've worked really hard to try to push, the envelope. And like at the end of every film, you've got a list of things that you learn. You discover things, and sometimes you're able to make changes as you go, and sometimes it's just too late to do all the things you want to do. And the march of technology takes a lot of effort and time as well. So it's been a really great opportunity to be able to return to these characters that we love, and just be able to make them better and better.
I'm curious. Was there any one thing in particular or a sequence of things technologically that has occurred since you did Dawn that allowed you to now with War? I mean, you've doubled the number of new characters. And anybody that knows anything about, motion capture, VFX, digital, you're dealing with fur. Fur has been the bane of existence
for Pixar, for everybody else. And it's only been, I'd say, probably the past 7 or 8 years where we've really seen a leap with technology that allows for the individual fiber texture, so to speak.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, that's something that we've been, just actively pushing on since King Kong, really. I mean, when we made King Kong, we completely wrote a new fur system from scratch, and it's been sort of a continuous rewriting of that system and that software ever since then. And every time we scrap the code and start over again, we've learned so many things, and we're attacking it in better and better ways. But there's another thing that happens too, and that's that the artists that are doing the work have been getting just better and better as well, and they're our observation of nature and picking out the details that are important to making things look real, it's gotten more sophisticated, and just the skill and of the artists as they've gone from project to project. I mean, there's guys here that have been basically doing nothing but grooming it for 10 years, and they've just gotten really good at it. And at the same time, they've been able to make suggestions to the people writing the software about different ways to approach the problem and what they wish they could do. And it's been the other thing that's happened is each film has its own unique challenges. So on War, one of the big challenges was snow. We had to let snow, fall and land on the fur. We had to let the apes roll through the snow and pick up snow onto their fur. The clumping and the wetness of the fur had to change as the snow would adhere and then melt a little bit and kind of turn into ice. And so these are all things that we hadn't done before. And that's one of the things that's really exciting about the job is being able to take all the tools that you've developed over the years and then add to them as you've got, as you discover new problems that you haven't solved in new stories.
Well, and all of that goes into play with this particular film, where you've pretty much doubled the number of new characters that are introduced in War, as opposed to what we saw between Dawn and Rise. And each one of those new characters is so distinctive. Did it reach a point, or does it ever reach a point where you sit there and you really want to do honor to Mother Nature, but it's like you say, oh God, we don't have any more ways to make this ape look different from the other one?
I mean, that's always a challenge with this franchise, is trying to figure out ways to make each ape sort of distinct and unique, so that the audience, who are humans, obviously, that they're able to pick out the differences and keep track of the characters. And it's a critical, film storytelling thing where you have to be able to tell the difference between the characters, or else people start to get lost in the story. And you see it even with human actors. If you've got two actors that look too close to one another, and you don't spend enough time with them to be able to understand the differences, it can be quite confusing in a movie. So that casting is really important. Casting is obviously important for real actors, but it's also important for digital characters, making sure that you've got a cast that's visually distinct and unique. And that's something that Matt Reeves, the director, was certainly tuned into, and we were as well. But there's another thing as well, which is that one of the things we discovered as we made the first two films, and certainly into the third, was that you really can't improve on nature. The more we deviated from real chimpanzees, the more we tried to humanize the apes, or do different things to adjust their design, the more we'd sort of lose our way, and the design and character of the characters would start to suffer a little bit. So we've tried to adhere as closely as we can to real chimpanzees and orangutans and gorillas, and pick out all those little fine details that are unique and specific to those species, and introduce those into our digital characters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's one exception to that, and that is that these characters also have to be able to perform in a way that our human audience understands their emotional arcs, and that they get the facial expressions that they're making instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the area where we would cheat a little bit. We would introduce a little bit of the human actors onto the digital apes in areas like the eyes, in particular, the folds above the eyes and the eyebrows, and around the muzzle area, trying to get what are more human signature wrinkles and folds onto the digital apes.
Mm-hmm. Well, something that you never cheat on, that is a testament to the technology and to the skill of you and your team, is the emotional complexity that still comes through in each one of the performances, with each of the characters, and that's through the eyes. You never cheat on the eyes.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time trying to get the eyes to look just right. I will say, we do take a little bit of liberty with them in that, most apes have very dark scleras. The area that we call the white of the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Humans tends to be more of like a coffee colored or even black sometimes on apes, and that can present problems when we're trying to make facial expressions and we're trying to see exactly where the character's looking and that sort of thing. So we have, on not all, but many of our characters, we've lightened their scleras up a little bit in order to be able to, tell a little bit more what they're thinking, where they're looking, and how squinted down their eyes are, and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. How collaborative? Before I get into this, I've got to ask you. Talk to me about ray tracing. I know that's relatively new.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, ray tracing is a technology that's been in computer graphics since the 70s, and but it's something that has been inordinately expensive in terms of just processor time, and also in terms of the amount of memory that a machine needs to have in order to ray trace efficiently. And it's only in the last, I'd say, probably 6 years or so, that computers have gotten fast enough and have been able to hold enough memory to be able to ray trace big scenes like the ones you see in war efficiently, and that the ability to go down that ray tracing route actually has made a phenomenal difference in the realism of the characters. We explored a few different ray tracers. RenderMan introduced ray tracing. It would have probably been about 8 or 9 years ago, and it's something that we looked at, but it was not as robust as we needed it to be. So at a certain point, we made a decision to write our own rendering software, and we road tested it a little bit on Dawn, but really only on distant, like shots with lots of characters far away, and it was promising, but it wasn't yet developed to the point where we could use it on hero close-up characters. And when we made Jungle Book with the King Louis sequence with all the apes and monkeys, that was a scene where we were really able to get ape characters, heavily furred characters, into a scene and ray trace it all in a complex environment, and really prove that the software and also the hardware was up to the task. And that's allowed us to spend a lot more of our time doing creative work in our lighting and our shading and the processes that we use to make the pictures, rather than technical work. In the past, we'd had to do a lot of massaging and cheating, frankly, in order to simulate the way that light would transport through a scene. But now with the ray tracer, we can actually just let the physics do its thing, and the results that we get are much more realistic.
So I'm curious, you've got 1,450 shots in this film, or thereabouts. What is the actual process that you, as a VFX supervisor in your team, that you guys go through for creating the apes in terms of the cinematographic elements of lighting and framing? Is that a collaborative nature with the cinematographer? Is that something that you work with, Bill Hoy on through the editing process? Take me through that.
So we really follow the lead of the cinematographer, who, when we're shooting the scene on set, he and the director kind of talk through what their creative visual goals are for the scene, and from shot to shot they'll adjust the lighting, and we take very precise measurements of what the lighting is physically doing on the set at that moment, And then when we get back into the our world, the post-production world, we'll call up those measurements of the scene lighting, and we'll reconstruct what was on set digitally. That doesn't mean that we don't change a few things. One of the issues with the characters is that our apes tend to be darker colored than the humans playing them, and so sometimes we need to just increase the the light that hits them a little bit more. But it gives us a really great starting point, and we've got an excellent visual reference for the intent of the cinematographer and Michael Seresin and then the director, Matt Reeves, in front of us in the lighting that's on Andy Serkis or on Terry Notary or any of the other characters playing the apes. And so that tends to be our guide. And we'll the same way that we stick very closely to the performance of the actors, we try very hard to stick closely to the lighting of the cinematographer.
What is the process in hand? How does that work most effectively between you and Bill Hoy? Is Bill sitting there with Matt and they're editing stuff, but it's like something just is not quite right, and it's like, okay, we need a little more here, we need to tweak something here. Do they send that to you, or is it more often where you see something and kick it back to them?
Usually, the way the process works is Matt and Bill or Stan, his other editor, depending on what scene they're working on, they'll sit down and they'll cut together a version of the movie where it's dramatically accurate. Everything is basically as it should appear in the final movie, except that there are no apes. There's only the actors, wearing their funny gray suits, and I think to somebody who's only seen the finished movies, if they see this kind of what we call the template, the assembly of the actors cut together into a scene, the first couple of shots, you're like, oh, that's kind of funny. I see Andy Serkis wearing his gray suit, and I have to imagine that he's going to be a monkey. But it's amazing. Like, within about 30 seconds, you get totally sucked into it, and your suspension of disbelief kicks in, and you just accept that Andy Serkis is Caesar. He's playing a character, and dramatically, you can watch the scene, and it totally will work. You're able to make decisions, beat for beat, what should be happening, when to cut, when the music should come up. And then, once Matt and the editors have done that, they'll hand that over to us as what we call a turnover. And at the turnover, basically we've got a map to follow. We've got the scene all cut together, the shot lengths, everything is edited together as it should be with the performances chosen. And then our job is simply to replace the actors with apes and to match dramatically, beat for beat, frame for frame, each emotional beat that the actors are hitting, in that shot or in that collection of shots, in the sequence. And typically what will happen is, I'll work on those, on the apes with my team, with Dan Barrett, the animation supervisor here, and with the various visual effects supervisors that are doing the lighting and the compositing and putting the rest of the shot together. And we'll we work on it for quite a while in order to get the acting of our apes to match the acting of the actors, and to get the lighting of our apes to match the lighting of the scene. And once it's sort of, we show it to Matt a few times along the way, to Matt, and also the editors will be part of that review process. For example, we'll show them animation blocking first, which is sort of a rough version of the animation where the beats are mostly there, but it might not have it typically wouldn't have any facial expressions yet. And then we'll show them a version that's sort of the complete animation, which has facial animation, but it's all sort of unlit. It's on a sort of video game version of the characters. And then once they've approved that, we'll go into the lighting and rendering and compositing part of the process, which is, where we make everything look visually completely real, put it back together, and then we'll send it through again to review. And often, we'll go a couple rounds at each stage in order to make sure that we've hit all the right beats.
Is there ever a time where you all collectively finally say, okay, no, that's it, we're done, even though in your hearts well, we could tweak this a little more, we could do this?
Yeah, I think, anytime you're making a big movie like this, there's a certain amount of, pragmatism that has to happen where you choose your battles and you make sure that the most important things are 100% correct, and the least important things you don't want them to bump you don't want them to pull people out of the scene, but you also don't want to waste your precious time and energy chasing things that aren't actually that important. So it's a constant judgment call about what is acceptable and good enough, and what has to be flawless.
I'm curious, with virtual reality techniques popping up everywhere, has virtual reality come into play at all with the visual effects in Apes?
Yeah, I mean, we as part of publicity campaigns and as sort of the stewards of the assets of the the characters, we'll sometimes get involved in creating virtual reality pieces for for different shows. We did one for Jungle Book that was pretty cool. And we've done the Pete's Dragon and several others. We've looked at a few things for Apes. I don't think anything's actually been released yet, and I don't know. Fox may or may not choose to pursue something in that direction. But it's definitely an arena that we've been playing in, and it's something that's it's exciting to be able to take characters that you've put so much energy into and making the movie, and be able to experience them in a different medium.
I have to ask, is it more fun for you, because with all the new characters that were introduced in War, is it more fun to have an established character like Caesar and age him up as the storyline progresses through the films, or start with brand new, fresh characters to introduce? Do you have a preference?
I mean, yeah, they're both great for different reasons. I mean, there's something great about having an established character and just being able to continue to develop and evolve and change things on them and with them. And it's fascinating to watch what the actors do with their characters as well. You look at the way that that Andy played Caesar in Rise compared to Dawn, and War compared to Dawn. Like that evolution of the actor, in their authorship of the character is amazing. So that's a really cool thing to be a part of. But I mean, it also it's great to make new characters. I mean, many of us got into the business because we're so enamored with the creature and character films of the times when we grew up, and it's just a fantastic thing to get to play God a little bit and bring these characters to life. And there's a magic moment where you've done all this research and design and development, and you've put all this effort into creating rigs and puppets and animating, and at a certain point you get to a point where the animation starts to work and you start to get the lighting together and you throw a composite together, and suddenly a character that was an idea has suddenly come to life, and that's an amazing moment, and it never gets old.
Well, and for you've been on this digital journey for quite some time. Starting with digital. And,
yes, I'm old.
And you're not as old as me, so, but, you did VFX on Man of Steel, on Avatar, but then really started getting into the whole mocap thing with the VFX probably around the time of King Kong. And so this has to be really exciting for you to come through.
Yeah.
This whole journey.
It is, and I think one of the things that was great was, in this franchise, we did something that hadn't really been done before. We took a set of tools that were great for capturing performances of actors, but they were limited to only being used in kind of specialized, dedicated spaces, and we took those tools out onto location, onto the live action film set, and that was a pretty incredible thing, because we were it was bleeding edge, and there were a lot of things that went wrong along the way, but we were able to get it to work. And being able to offer that tool to filmmakers and to actors to be able to say, like, we can capture your performance wherever you decide to do it, whether it's on a stage or whether it's on location or whether it's back in a performance capture volume. But we can record what you do, and then we can put that into the movie exactly as you've done it, but on a character that looks nothing like you. I think that's pretty amazing, and it's been a real honor to be able to be part of that process.
Well, I know that you have a heart out. You've got another interview or something to go, but before I let you go, very quickly want to ask you, Dan, what did you personally take away from the experience of making this film that you can now take forward into your next projects?
Oh, geez, that's such a good question. There's so many things. I mean, I think the process of making a movie like this, you're learning every day, and you're trying things out, and you're failing, and you're fixing things, and you're discovering, and you're having epiphanies. And, it's hard to point to a single thing, but I guess I just and it's true of really all the films, but every day I come to work, I'm just amazed at the caliber of the people that I work with. And one thing that in this movie really kind of hit home was how dependent I am and how dependent the movie is on the raw talent and dedication of the people that work here. And I just feel incredibly lucky to be able to work with a team that comes from literally every corner of the world and has gathered in this tiny island country at the bottom end of the planet to make movies like this, and it's a pretty special thing.
And a very special thing it is indeed. Dan Lemon, the complete audio of the interview and the written text to go with it will be up on BehindTheLensOnline.net later this week. For Guild members, Academy members, Dan's work and that of the WETA VFX team is so award-worthy, worth your consideration. If you want to listen again to Dan talk about the process, you'll be able to do so. You'll be able to read about it. Also, a companion to that will be my complete interview with Bill Hoy, editor on War for Planet of the Apes. And we may even have time to get to a little bit of Bill later in today's show. But right now, the wonderful actress turned author, Penelope Lagos, is with us. All right.
Hi there.
Hi, Penelope.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good to be back on.
Wow. Okay, what phone are you on? Because you keep crackling up.
Oh, I'm crackling?
You're crackling.
Oh, that's not good.
Crackling isn't good.
Is it better or no?
It's still Pam's in this. Pam's trying to futz with it, and she's shaking her head. No.
No? Okay, I can call. Can I call back from another line?
Yeah, call back from another line. That'll work because I want everybody to really get to hear you talk about I Miss My Best Friend.
Okay, I will call you right back.
Okay, call right back.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and that is the joy of live anything. So Penelope should be back, rejoining us momentarily, calling from a different phone. So hopefully we will have much better audio quality for all of you. I myself am very curious to hear what she has to say about this transition from actress to author with this book, which is absolutely charming, be it for children or for adults. Because as everybody knows, when you lose a pet is like your child and is very much part of your family. So it's just as hard, no matter who you are, when you lose a loved best friend, furry best friend. Are we ready, Pam? No, we're not ready. Okay. All right. We're not ready. All right. They're playing. They're playing with the phones. And for those of you who are just tuning in, this is Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias. And if you're on Facebook, and Nick Fedoroff, our fearless leader and owner of Adrenaline Radio, I'm being junior guinea pig again this week for Nick on his Facebook page as he plays with various kinds of equipment. I think he has it on his page, either Things Green or Nick Federoff on Facebook. He's doing a live Facebook of my show right now. So you can also tune in there. We're also doing our usual 2-camera video shoot, which goes into full post-production with a full edit. And that will be up sometime within the next couple of weeks. Rebroadcast of this show happens. You can find us on behindthelensonline.net tonight. We're also on iTunes. And then also, as part of the BTL radio show family now, you can also hear us later in the week on indiepopcorn.fm. And there's some great podcasts on Indie Popcorn. So, check them out. Okay, and I see, okay, Penelope and Pam are doing something with the phones. I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing something. I see joy on Pam's face. So, this must mean we have a good, clear connection now. Is this true? Okay, we're nodding. I'm waiting. Okay, we're good. All right. Here we go. I see Pam get a great big smile on her face. So, oh, that is perfect. Now you sound wonderful.
Hi there.
Now you sound wonderful, Penelope. Welcome.
I'm all clear.
I'm so thrilled to have you back on the show. I was tickled when Joe reached out to me. You could have reached out yourself.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I was happy that you wanted me back on.
Oh, my God. Well, all of our regular listeners and all of my readers over the past 30-plus years, they all know my great love of books and reading. Reading is fundamental. I'm still of the old school. Reading is fundamental. And with a book like this, I miss my best friend. It may be a children's book, but this is something that everybody can relate to. And, of course, the first thing I thought of is, this would make a wonderful animated short film.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
And
it's funny because someone just brought that up literally last week. But I hadn't actually thought of that myself. So now you're the second person to say it. So now you're giving me ideas.
This is the perfect kind of story to turn into a video, into a short film.
A short film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We might have to get on this then.
I think so. And, I mean, you might know a director who can help you with it.
I may or may not know someone.
Yes, we may or may not. As long as it's taking him to put together a sequel to The Jersey Devil, I don't know here.
Yes, there's lots in the works over there. So
I'll tell you. And you're working on The Deplorables with Joe, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, I am. There's a number of projects he has ready to go. It's just getting that investment piece together. The hardest part, the final piece.
Well,
to move forward. So
I know Joe comes up with the greatest ideas. Those of you, our regular listeners, know you and Joe have been on the show before. Edwin Ortega, who also co-star Edwin's been on the show. Mr. Mulkey has been on the show. All talking about The Jersey Devil, which is absolutely hilarious, and that I can't wait to see the sequel to it. I've been waiting, and I know Joe is also working on the web series The Deplorables.
Yes.
Which
we shot a number of trailers for different episodes for that, and have those up online now. But just need the final sponsorships to sort of move it forward, so that we can at least put a pilot and maybe a few episodes up there.
Mm-hmm.
So things are in the works, but always wait for Joe for the green light.
I'll tell you. But something that you went ahead while you're waiting for all these projects, because you're always busy. You do modeling. That's your hand. You do hand modeling too with carpets or something.
I do. I do parts modeling. Mostly,
I like this parts modeling, body parts modeling. Oh,
yes, parts modeling. A lot of shoes, but do some hand stuff as well. So.
Oh, Well, and that's very specialized.
It is, yeah. Not everyone can get into it. I know with for the shoes, for instance, the sample size is a 6.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to do the shows and stuff, the foot has to be certain measurements. So who knew? Who knew I'd ever get into such a thing? But here I am.
Body parts. You're like a chop shop on a walking chop shop.
You got it.
Oh my God! Well, something that you have done that, and hopefully the typing was not too strenuous on your hands.
Oh right.
Was writing this. Mm-hmm. I miss my best friend. What was? It's not like everybody sits down and thinks I'm going to write a children's book. I wrote one years ago after my black cat Narcissa. She actually set her tail on fire and ran around the house, burning black streaks in the carpet.
Oh, wow.
And a children's book called Narcissa Cooks the Kitchen.
Oh, my gosh. I have to look it up. I had no idea.
It's not online anymore. It's like it came out in print.
Okay.
And not too many copies were printed, but I think somewhere I may even have a copy. I've thought about now doing a self-publication to reissue it.
Oh, that would be so cool, definitely.
But you just get these weird inspirations when you open your front door and you see, here's the black cat and a tail is smoldering. Here's a dog running behind her. Here's the other cat running behind him. And then you see these burnt paper towels on top of the stove. Oh, she went up and pulled all the paper towels down into the pilot light. And
oh, boy.
And she was a big, fluffy black cat. And
they do tend to get into some mischief.
They do. Mm-hmm. So, to see you turn to writing a children's book as your first endeavor, I was enchanted by the whole idea to begin with. But what was the genesis? What was the impetus for this particular story?
Well, that would be actually the loss of my own dog, Cassius, who the book is actually about. Cassius is the main character in the book. I know you've read it, and he is on the cover, so others can see who he is. He was actually a pit bull, and one of the most loving dogs you'd ever come across. I mean, everyone that knew him said that about him. And I had him for actually almost 16 years. So it differs a little bit in the book, where in the book he actually lives to be 10. Mm-hmm. In real life, he lived to be almost 16, which is unusual for the breed. And when he passed away 2 years ago, it was a very difficult time for me, and I didn't take it well. And I started, maybe because I'm in the arts, or I'm not sure what triggered it. I mean, I've always liked to write. I began writing some feelings down. I did sort of search for something, that would help me get through this. And I really couldn't find too much, and so I just started writing my own thoughts down. And I thought to myself, I'm not taking this well at all. It's the only dog I ever had. I had cats growing up, and I still have 2, but I never had a dog. And the bond that you share with a dog mm-hmm. is very strong for any of the listeners out there who have dogs or who've loved a dog and had that bond, that animal bond connection with the dog. So I really, I began to write my feelings down and memories about Cassius, and I thought, I wonder if I could make this into something. It would be nice to be able to sort of develop something that would help children, since I didn't see a lot out there for families. So that's sort of where it all began.
Wow. Well, and it's not that you're just writing this just to write it, but you hold a certification in canine fitness and conditioning.
I do.
I
do. Very strange, I know.
But, and you've got your pet CPR and first aid.
Yeah. And human that I just got in May. My brother and I actually went together after a bit of a difficult episode that we went through when we were out one day together. And I said, you know what, we should be able to spring into action and help someone, and we weren't able to because neither of us knew CPR. Mm-hmm. So I said, hey, I have my animal first aid CPR. We're getting the human one. So him and I went in May right here in New Jersey, and we actually got certified, both of us.
Well, of course,
so,
I'm sure that you'd prefer to do the CPR on animals over people.
Correct. I hope my certification never comes to use.
But, I find this interesting that, you're certified in canine fitness and conditioning as well. So you really know what goes into the care of an animal and the process and the bond that is created on multiple levels.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because the connection with that certification that I got with the canine conditioning is how I met the illustrator of this book. So there was a Facebook group that we had for the course, and through that group, the teacher actually has, Dr. Erica Bowling, she has several Facebook groups that she started for her different classes. But I was scrolling through one day, and, I saw a beautiful sketch a woman by the name of Sophie Moricini drew. And I saw it on Facebook in the group, and I thought, I wonder if she illustrates, does she just do portraits, or has she ever done a book? And so I reached out to her, and that's actually how I found my illustrator.
Wow.
Because of that course. Yeah. So small world.
Well, I have to say the illustrations, they really harken back to the simplicity of, Dick and Jane books.
Yes.
That were around when I was in school. There's nothing.
I know which one.
There's nothing high tech.
Nope.
It's very simplistic, but it's vibrant. There's color. You make great use of color with all the different animals that you have because your heroes in the book, Louie and Penny.
Yes.
I take it this is you and your brother.
It is. Yes. Except everyone keeps saying, I didn't know you had a twin. And I say, well, he's a year older than me, but for the purpose of the book, I made him my twin.
He can be a twin. Okay.
Exactly.
But
thank you for noticing that, though, because the illustrations I wanted to keep simple, but like you said, still colorful. I just didn't want it to be animated type drawing or cartoon type drawing. I didn't want that. I wanted it to be as realistic as possible because I thought that was what was missing in the marketplace right now, was something that was more real to life and that people would sort of connect with better.
I mean, I think the illustrations are beautiful, especially when you get into, all the different animals, because Louie and Penny love animals, not just dogs. They love animals.
Yes.
And we see so many different kinds of animals, jungle animals, pets, fish. It's really so beautifully done that I can just, that any kid can pick up this book, any child can pick up this book, and they'll see an animal and identify with a picture.
Thank you. Yes, that's what I'm hoping for.
And they could very easily just replace, the adorable Cassius with a fish.
Right, and that's definitely a part of this that was really important to me, that my story that I chose was about my dog, but I want it to be interchangeable for any other animal, or even in some cases, people that I've spoken to have said it can relate to any loss, even a human in the family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a book about how we deal with loss and overcome loss.
And then you also give parents tips on how to help a child deal with grief. Now, where did you, are those just from your own heart or experiences, or did you consult with any groups or professionals for that section?
Yeah, both, actually. So the nonprofit organization that I teamed up with, that I'm donating 10% of my books, each book sale back to, is actually New Jersey, St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center. Some people outside of the state, I'm sure have heard of them, as they've really made national news recently because they were first on the lines over at the various tragic hurricanes that occurred over the last couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And they were there, transporting all types of animals from the shelters over to the Northeast area to adopt them out so that they could make room for animals that belong to people over
that were being rescued. Yeah,
exactly. So they have a pet loss group that they do twice a month there, So I did consult with them to see sort of what people needed, but also a lot of those tips were just from me, from experiencing, from going through it and saying, hey, like, this is what helped me. And I've talked to a lot of people. I tried to research, what people were feeling after the loss of a pet. And I tried to compile everything and just bring it down to the 10 tips, which I include in the back of the book.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to put the book together? How many rewrites and drafts did you go through before even getting to the illustration pages and your tips for coping?
So people think that a children's book, it's only 32 pages and it's, a few lines on each page and it's not that big of a deal. But I'll tell you something, as you know, from writing your own, it's not that easy at all. It took me, the initial write was quick, but I had done so many rewrites, honestly, up until the end. I had people sort of viewing it right up until a couple weeks before we went to press, and I was still rewriting. So I can't even tell you the countless amount of times I rewrote it and edited, and that was before I even went to storyboard it. And I storyboarding was a whole separate phase. So it was from beginning to end where the concept came from, and then till I actually got an independent publisher to publish it until it actually went to print was over a year in the making.
Wow. Now you talk about storyboarding. So did you do your own rough illustrations to begin with before Sophie came on board, or was she storyboarding with you?
Well, I actually wrote description. I did it through writing. So I would write descriptive. I can't draw for anything.
There are these things called coloring books, and you can actually go and cut out pictures.
Yes.
And
that's a good. Yeah.
That's what I did. That's actually what I did, so I could perfect, trying to get the illustrations for the animals, correct. I actually got.
That's interesting. We should have talked earlier.
I took coloring books, the juvenile ones that have the big dogs and the cats, and the ones that little kids love, that I still love now that we have, watercolor pens and really cool, colored pencils to color with.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll admit it. Coloring is a good thing to do at 4 o'clock in the morning when you're brainstorming on something and you're stuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's what you should try. You should try that, or you take actual photos.
Hopefully for the next one, for this one I wrote out descriptions of what I wanted, and I sent her a lot of real life photographs of my family because I thought that would help her sort of capture what we look like, who we were, and the characters in essence. So we spoke. She's in the UK, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had to do some Facebook and video sort of chatting. Thank God for technology. It's allowed us to just talk real time, and it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, she definitely added her own flair to certain things, and I described to her exactly what I wanted for each piece for the storyboarding. But it was a process, because then she would send me, sketches and then colorings, and so that took several months as well. How
particular were you when it came to your color choices?
She was actually. She sort of lent her creativity for the color choices. I was particular with everything having to do with Cassius, just because he's white.
Yeah.
The all-white body with just the brown patch. It was important to add some sort of coloring in the background. So if you'll see when he's at the vet's office, you'll notice there's a black lab in one of the photos. I did a lot with the red, using a red ball, or the blue bed, just to try to offset the white. Mm-hmm. Dealing with an all-white dog was challenging.
Well, it's very similar to a filmmaker when they're dealing with snow.
Exactly.
A cinematographer trying to light snow and lend snow. So that's always a challenge, be it on paper, be it on film. White is always a challenge.
Yeah, white is really tough. So it was important, but then also you'll notice that some of the pages where it's just him, we kept it simple because the idea there was that he was getting older and he was having some challenges, so that vibrancy sort of fades away at the end of the book.
How cathartic was it for you writing this book?
Oh, very. It was a huge part of my grieving process. Even from the beginning to end, even now, hearing people's reactions on the book and hearing, since then, of course, I've had friends who have lost animals and had to put an animal to sleep, and it's always a very difficult sort of thing to do, just because the animal is your best friend, and they are a huge part of the family, and people develop such strong bonds. And I noticed that a lot of times, people, and maybe people can relate to this, they'll acquire an animal at a very difficult time in their life. Mm-hmm. So they always have that connection with the animal, whether it's another death of a family member or a divorce or moving to a new town or whatever, some sort of big life event. Mm-hmm. And so, you have this bond and this connection, and then when the pet is gone, you feel an additional loss.
Right.
So I think for me, being able to tell my story, and I'm hoping to be able to help other people get through their grief and the process of just losing an animal is really important to me.
Mm-hmm. So where can everybody find this incredible book? I mean, the holidays are coming. People do need gifts. This is a perfect gift.
Thank you. I hope it's a heartwarming story so people will be able, and like I said, not only for children but for adults as well. Mm. The book is on Amazon and also Barnes & Noble's online. But the easiest way is if you go to my website, which is PENELOPELAGOS.com. All the links to the book and to all my social media are right on the homepage there. So it's probably the easiest way to connect with me.
I have to tell you, you mentioned your website. Your website is one of the most cogent websites out there. It's like you have everything across the top. Hit this. We got about. We've got resume. We've got photos. Yes. We have work. We have author's notes. So it's very clean cut.
Yes. Well, I did it myself, so you won't find anything too fancy on there. So I'm not tech savvy. That's definitely not on my special skills. So it's very simple. I like easy to use. User-friendly, just being able to click and everything's right there for you. So everything's labeled, my Facebook, Twitter, all the Amazon pages, everything's right up on the homepage.
And, of course, as you know, once today's show goes through video and all, all of that will be up on everybody. They can watch the video and it'll all be typed out for them so they can see it in front of them, too.
Perfect.
As to where to go.
I'll definitely connect with I'll post that up once it's available as well.
Yeah, it'll probably be a couple weeks by the time I get it to North Carolina to my editor and she gets it done. But the audio of today's show will be up tonight on BehindTheLensOnline.net and on iTunes tomorrow and on IndiePopcorn.fm probably tomorrow or Wednesday.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, so everybody will be able to hear all about this book. And I mean, you just slipped it in there slightly, mentioning your next book.
The next book. Yes, no one knows about that yet, but I accidentally just said it.
Yes, you did.
I have ideas for another book. I have an idea, of course, still in the animal genre, but not about loss. This time I do have two other topics in mind, so I'll probably get to work on that next year. And
it'll be a children's book again?
It will, yes.
I think adoption would be a good one?
Adoption is a great one.
Adoption
is a great one. And actually that sort of pieces together with one of my ideas.
Adoption.
It relates directly to it, so.
Or even, and kids that go through like picking a turtle in the pet store or a goldfish. These are very big decisions, and nobody writes about these tough ones.
Yeah, no, it's very true.
Picking your red-eared turtles in the pet store or your goldfish.
Which one is going to be the family pet?
That's just it. There's great debate about those things.
I agree.
And unfortunately, something needs to get wrapped in there about how you care for these animals.
Oh, well, that was a piece of it, too. Just showing, hopefully people will see in the book just how much responsibility and care goes into taking care of a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Vacations, I know we brought Cassius with us often. If not, then just like a child, you have to have someone able to watch the pet, feed
mm-hmm.
the pet.
Yeah.
You can't just fly by the seat of your pants when you have responsibilities. Yeah.
No. Well, even for me now, with the 3 cats I have, with Yoda, Kayron, and Clark, Kayron suffers with restrictive cardiomyopathy, and Yoda has a thyroid-caused cardiomyopathy and kidney disease, and they've got to have multiple medicine at specific times during the day. So it's like I can't go if I have to go somewhere, mm-hmm. I have to board them at the animal hospital itself. You can't even take them because of the regimen and the signs you have to look for with their particular illnesses.
Of course, yeah. No, that makes sense. And that happens. I mean, with even when they're younger, I know that certain things pop up, and once, you have to start giving medicine at certain times, and, maybe it's difficult for people to travel with their animals, so you have to have someone that you trust to be able to, like you said, either board at the animal hospital
mm-hmm.
or, another family member or neighbor that you trust to be able to come and take care of the animal. So it's not just up and go. It's like having a child. I always say that.
Of course, for many people, that's why I have no children. I have them. I have no children. Children I can give back. When all of my nephews were little and I would visit them back east, I could give them back.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
I say that too.
But what was interesting is I would leave, years ago I had a dog and 2 cats, and I would leave them. Of course, I had somebody who would actually feed them and whatnot. But now, with medical conditions, with my 3 cats I have now, who are all, 2 of them are 17 and a quarter, and Yoda's 16 and a half. You've got, with their conditions, you have to monitor their breathing and their respiration rates.
Oh, absolutely.
Who's going to be bothered with counting respiration rates except a pet parent?
Except the parent. Yeah, you got it.
So
absolutely.
So now, have you gotten a new dog since Cassius?
I have not.
Just the cats.
Nope, I just have the 2 cats, and I tell people all the time. Well, first of all, the 2 cats are not interested at all in having another dog in this house.
Oh, of course not.
They want no part of it. We've actually babysat some dogs since his passing for friends, and they were out of their skin about it. So I said, first of all, the cats won't allow it. I mean, with Cassius, he was actually here first,
mm-hmm.
and then they were introduced. So they loved him very much, and they bonded with him. But
now
this is their territory.
Yeah, nobody's coming in.
Nobody's coming in.
No.
And I'm super busy right now, and I say to take the time to properly train a puppy and bring a puppy here. You have to be ready to do that, and I definitely don't have that in me right now. So we shall see what the future holds.
Well, and sadly, we are all out of time today.
Wow, that went quick.
I know. This is horrible. I'm so glad that Joe took the first step and emailed me and says, hey, you want Penelope to talk about her book? Since Penelope didn't bother to email me herself, even though she has my email.
Next time I'm emailing you directly.
So we both owe Joe for this one.
We do.
So we owe him. This has been so much fun. I'm so thrilled to have you back on the show and to talk to you again. And
thank you so much.
As I said, everybody, this book, it is a wonderful, wonderful book for children, for adults, and with the holidays, this is perfect. And they can all go to PENELOPELAGOS.com and order it.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Oh, Penelope, thank you so much. And I know you will be back on the show again.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Debbie. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And that was the wonderful Penelope Lagos. I Miss My Best Friend. It is really a heartwarming, wonderful book. So that's all the time we have. We're done for today. Next week, Steve Lee, sound guru Steve Lee, will be here talking about the Hollywood Sound Museum. He's going to be in studio with us for the hour, and he's going to be bringing along sound clips and all kinds of fun stuff that I know Pam is going to love and that Nick's going to love hearing too. So, until next week, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.